This is the Surly Grognards for January 12th, 2015. This is Peter Bowman, and as usual, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Eric Carlson. How are you doing tonight, Eric?
I'm doing all right.
Most excellent. So, we are on another topic suggested by the viewers.
Hooray, we love those.
Yes, we do. This is from an email from Jacob, who says that he just started running a Black Crusade campaign and wanted to be rather sandboxy. Give my players the option to roam space, mostly freely. And my idea was that my players tell me what they want to do next, and I would plan out the next session based on that. Out of curiosity, I would like to hear your opinion and thoughts on sandbox campaigns and how to handle them. What are the do's and don'ts for this? And I read that, and I thought, that's probably going to eat up most of an episode.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked a little bit about sandbox games, mostly in sort of contrast to more structured games.
Yes. Yeah, and we haven't actually done a show on sandbox games at all.
Not directly.
Yeah, lots of mentions here and there.
Right. So I figured this would be a good topic for this week. I will say this: I've never run a really completely sandboxy game myself. I've used sandboxy elements in my games, but I've never really gone whole hog into that.
Yeah, on the rare occasion that I run, I was like, you are doing this adventure. That is how it is going to happen. You guys can solve it however you like, but this is your goal.
Right. I usually will I often will drop 3 or 4 different adventure hooks and see where the players go. But that's that's about sort of the usual extent of it. I've never really tried going full on sandbox. Usually, we've talked about this before.
Right.
My usual sort of thing is I'll come up with sort of a general sort of plot arc, plot/story arc I'm thinking of, sort of meta plot for the at least this part of the campaign, given part of the campaign in the background, and then I'll hang different adventures off of that. And I'll often react to what the players are doing to frame the adventures that I'm doing. So I do tend to give a lot of leeway to the players. But I've never really tried going full on, okay, what are you guys doing? I mean, the question, what are you guys doing now, is one I ask a lot.
Yes. And my thoughts on sandbox games is that they hinge it's a tremendous amount of work for the game master.
I would agree with that.
Like, holy shit. And a good way to get that workload down to something more manageable is the whole illusion of choice thing.
Oh, yes.
Something we play on, we talk about a lot in this podcast.
Yep.
It's like, make it feel like your players are in fact going off into left field to go and do this thing, but no, actually, this is exactly what you planned on them doing. You just change the locale, and now instead of exploring a space hulk, they're exploring shattered ruins or something.
Right. I'm a big fan of that trick because it works really well, and it reduces my workload.
Yes.
I don't have to plan for every possible eventuality. Although I will say this, Jacob does mention at the end of it that at the end of each sort of adventure, asking the players what they want to do next so that he can do that then. That actually will also have a certain significant degree of reducing the workload.
Yes. Yeah, because you're only planning for a session at a time.
Right, or a session / few sessions at a time, depending on how long a given adventure ends up running for you. Or even you could just do it session to session, sort of say, okay, what are you guys planning on doing next session, and then you plan around that. And hopefully they won't decide, oh, we've changed our mind, we're going to go do this instead.
Oh, fuck you guys.
Yeah, that's
which is probably a good reason to have a couple things on the back boiler just ready to pop out when they pull that shit.
Well, yes, I would definitely recommend that. But yeah, I would definitely say that, so, the do's and don'ts...
Just as an aside, Black Crusade, if I remember correctly, is the Fantasy Flight Chaos-centric 40k RPG.
Okay.
And I was just thinking, to do that right, you have to have some really debauched lunatic people playing. Willing to go, total dark side. Chaos is not a nice thing.
The deuce you say. Well, I mean, and honestly, if you're running, I would say that if you're running a villainous campaign in general, a lot of that is gonna be, it's gonna end up by nature being somewhat sandboxy, I think.
Yeah, because traditionally the players are much more reactive to what's happening than, or the heroes are much more reactive than the villains are.
Yeah, as a general rule of thumb, villains are active, heroes are reactive. It's not always that, but that's a good rule of thumb. I should say rule of thumb. I'm trying to think of the phrase. It's what often happens, I should say.
Yeah. I'd say it's a good rule of thumb in that, yeah, there are obvious exceptions to that, but for the most part, yeah, the villains go off to do something horrible, and then heroes go to stop them.
Right.
That might actually be kind of fun to do in the Black Crusade game, is put together like an Inquisitional or Death Watch team that's largely just good guy mirrors of your players, and have them try to foil them at various twists and turns.
Well, yeah, it's
that
yeah.
this actually sounds really cool.
So you have a good guy group to show up and at various times and try to hinder the player's evil
Exactly.
schemes. All right. I mean, that's sort of what you end up having to do in any sort of game where you're sort of villain-centric if you want to have recurring antagonists.
Yeah.
I'd imagine that'd be sort of similar to what you'd end up doing in a supervillain campaign if you're doing a supervillain comic book style campaign.
Yeah. And if you do it right, then your players are very quickly going to learn how to obfuscate what their actual goals are.
Yeah. I don't know. I started thinking about the concept of, but I'm going to talk about this for a little bit. But think about the concept of a supervillain campaign.
Mm.
I think if I was running it, I would want the players to. I'd have to have the right group of players, and especially players who are at least fairly comfortable with sort of the genre conventions, as it were, and be comfortable with the fact that their plans probably won't actually succeed.
Yes.
Because if the villains keep winning, then the campaign is going to be pretty short for the most part, I think.
Yeah, as they destroy and/or take over the world.
Mm-hmm. Unless you want to sort of say, okay, you guys you've taken over the world. Now you get to run the world. Have fun.
You thought it would be all fun and games once you took over. You thought you were going to just sit in your big throne and with your on top of a big pile of bodies with your big crazy crown. But no, you got all sorts of trouble now. Now all the heroes are underground. Congratulations, you're now superheroes in the villain world. Wow. In order to maintain the status quo, you don't have to fight superheroes. Your roles are reversed. The heroes are now active and you are reactive.
Wow, that'd be really amusing.
Yeah.
God, that'd be frustrating, too, to a certain degree.
Yeah.
For the players. The players would be like, wait, what? No! God! And, I think honestly, it's kind of interesting.
That is kind of a cool idea. Yeah. Yeah, that could be kind of fun. Like, the first campaign, the first couple of adventures is actually conquering the world. Victory! Your super weapon works, all the United Nations folds before you. Everyone now pays fealty to Lord Squigglebutt and his inner circle.
In his council of evil.
And in his council of evil.
Because you gotta have a council of evil.
His evil council of evil. But now Captain Sunshine and the Good Feelings bunch have gone underground, and you have to, and they're blowing up your various facilities and whatnot. And now you have to stop them. Congratulations! Now you know what it feels like to be a hero.
What? No! Ah! I mean, given that they're evil, they'll have different sort of, reactions that heroes probably would have.
Oh yeah, certainly.
But you can then point out that their villainous, explosive responses are having deleterious effects on their newly minted empire.
If you keep on just blowing up the factory the good guys are in, you're going to run out of factories.
Also, you're blowing up a lot of valuable workers.
Yeah, I mean, skilled labor takes a while to breed, guys.
Oh, you're planning on changing over to pure robotics. Okay. It's a good thing none of the heroes are brilliant cyberpaths. Oh, wait.
Oh, you're screwed.
Oh, no! Your robot workers have become self-aware.
God damn it! Now you have robot uprising to put down. Congratulations, you now have Ultron, but he's not allied with you anymore.
What? No! He sided with the heroes. God damn it! Or, you could just have Ultron and, the heroes and the underground heroes and the villains in charge have to band together to save the world from Ultron.
Yeah, there's also that.
I'm not sure I'd want to run this campaign, but it's a fascinating idea.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I could run this campaign.
I don't think you're depraved enough, honestly.
I'd get frustrated, I think.
Yeah, you'd get pretty frustrated. I might be able to do it, but I'd burn out pretty quick no matter how much fun I'm having.
Right.
Like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. But, but back to sort of the topic of do's and don'ts for sandboxy games. I think the biggest do I can think of is to try to get your players invested in the campaign world and have them help.
Yes.
It'll cut down on your burden and it'll make the players, it'll give them a sense of ownership, which is usually a good thing.
Yeah, and that kind of thing really helps out also with because the whole idea with the sandbox game is that you're also being much more active rather than reactive. Going back to that again, but if they're investing in their evil plot of evil or their good plot of good, they'll explain to you what the deal is, what they're trying to accomplish, and what methods they're going to use, and then you can then build off of that.
Right. Yeah, I like that. That's definitely a big plus. Also, I mean, if they help design the world to a certain degree as they're playing through it, I mean, that's the big thing is that when they say they're going off to somewhere else, you don't have to plan that out ahead of time. You have sort of a rough framework for the world. I mean, that's the big thing for a big sandbox game, is that it helps to have a fairly well developed world all around. So
which helps with 40K, 'cause it's
right.
It's well developed, well defined, and it's fucking huge. You can include pretty much anything anyone wants to do in there.
Yep.
Except maybe lead a democratic uprising against the Empire of Mankind, because the Imperium kind of frowns on that shit.
Yeah, and they've got more guys than you.
They got a lot more guys than you. Stupid democracy.
It's not a question of democracy. It's a question of just swamping you with bodies if they need to.
Yeah.
Not that that's a
yeah, that could actually be kind of fun for a Black Crusade game. Is you're there, you're trying to achieve your goals, you need to do them quickly before they actually mobilize the friggin' Imperial Guard to drown you in bodies.
Because they'll do that, and they have no problem doing that.
Yeah.
And they have them.
Like you hope Marines show up. At least it'll be like maybe a dozen Marines.
Right, as opposed to several divisions of the Imperial Guard.
Yeah.
Or entire armies, multiple. God damn it.
200 million casualties? Well, we did stop those 3 Chaos Cultists from achieving their goals. Oh, well, that's an acceptable win-loss ratio for us. Because we're the Imperium of Mankind.
And we have billions upon billions of people. Oh. So, yeah. But yeah, having that sort of, having at least a framework for the universe the players are going to go gallivanting about in, or the game or the world, depending, whether it's, planet-based or solar system-based or galaxy-based or just continent-based or even...
Yeah.
I mean, with the sandbox, you could even just do it city-based if the players, as long as the players are agreeing that, like, yeah, we're going to sandbox, but just within the city.
Yeah, easily.
You just have to set up... That's a big do, is to, ahead of time, establish the scope you're planning for. So that you know how much you have to, build ahead of time. because I can think of nothing more frustrating than okay, we're doing a city based. It's a sandbox game. We're going to be staying in this city. Yeah, but we want to go off to this city over here on another continent,
which is on another planet, which is in an alternate dimension of space. Fuck you guys.
I'll kill you all. I would definitely also say that, I'm trying to think of some other good do's. I mean, there are a bunch of them I'm thinking of right now. I'm sort of waffling between the next one I want to talk about. But, yeah, definitely. Establishing the scope, huge. Once you have the scope identified, sort of established, then you can sort of start planning, building the area that they're going to be playing around in. And obviously, the narrower the scope to begin with, the more detail you can put in.
Mm.
Yeah, more toys you can throw in the sandbox for the players to play with. Because you as the game master only have so much time.
It's true.
I'm trying to think of some other out of curiosity, Eric. Before I go on my next bit, though, I actually was thinking, do you have any sort of dues for players in a sandbox game that you can think of?
Don't be that guy. Seriously, help out the GM as much as you can. Don't throw monkey wrenches in there just because you decided on a whim that instead of going on the pre-generated the thing that the game master has worked so hard on to, I don't know, I think instead I'm going to go on an adventure to get an ice cream sandwich.
Well, with the ice cream sandwich, the game master can say, okay, you got your ice cream sandwich. It was an epic adventure. Let's get back to the actual story.
Yeah, well, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, as an example, like, help out the game master as much as you can because they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Actually, I would say definitely for both the game master and the players, don't over sweat the minutia.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to want, concrete details and various things for various areas, but there are a lot of things that you can basically sort of, look at and go, yeah, we don't need to focus on that. It's detail for detail's sake, and you don't want to bog down too much in that, I'd say.
Some of it could be quite the adventure, though. Like, say, back to the Black Crusade thing, you're trying to get your Chaos Boys into a hive city to start an insurrection.
Sure.
Okay, cool. How are you going to do that? Are you going to come down? Are you going to come down their spaceport? How are you going to sneak in there? You're going to come down the waste around it and sneak in that way? What's your plan?
That's not like minutia for minutia's sake.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, I'm worrying too much about an individual shopkeeper in that sort of a campaign is less important.
Yeah.
Unless the players are going to be interacting with that shopkeeper a lot, or that shopkeeper is going to end up being plot critical somehow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely say unless something is going to be something the players interact with a lot or is going to be plot critical, don't over worry about it. Is my point. I think. I shouldn't say plot critical. I think story critical is more accurate for this.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I don't know. I have a hard time sort of.
Don't worry about Crazy Abdul and his noodle shop. We're just say they went to a noodle shop and it was run by a guy named Abdul. The end. Don't worry about his what his take for each night is and how well this noodle shop is doing and what's his home life like. Don't worry about that shit.
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, again, it depends on the scope you set up ahead of time. If
the story is about saving Crazy Abdul's noodle shop from the Yakuza.
Well, for that individual side, but that I'm saying that's a case where you're focusing. That will probably happen more likely to happen in a city-based game where you're just the sandbox is the city.
Yeah.
In that case, having stuff like that's great. But if the sandbox is the galaxy, or even just a sector of space.
Even a sector of space is pretty fucking huge.
That's my point. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, don't even sweat everything about every planet. It's okay. There's a. Don't even in that case. Don't even sweat every freaking planet in a solar system.
Right. Well, yeah, absolutely. Don't sweat every solar system. Hell.
Yeah.
Until your players decide they're going there.
Yeah. Until your players decide we're going to go to the 5th star in this stellar cluster, then to see what's there. Okay, then you can figure it out.
Right.
Maybe it's just a star. Maybe there's some gaseous anomalies. There's absolutely nothing to interest your chaos cultists, though.
Well, I think the thing is that the players would, in this sort of campaign, as a player, when you're framing sort of what you want to do, I think you want to phrase not so much the specifics of where you're going, but what it is you're going for. You're not so you wouldn't say, I'm going to this system in this cluster. I would say we want to find a planet that has these characteristics. Like we want to go to Hive, we want to go play with a Hive city so we can form a revolution there. So we want to. So that implies that it's a Hive city, on a, that has something about the infrastructure that means it's possible that you could start an insurrection there.
Yes.
As opposed, because not all Hive cities are alike.
This is true.
So,
yeah, because it's Hive City is more or less its own like friggin' world for all intents and purposes.
Right.
People don't go outside; they're all going to have their own completely different cultures.
Right. So, but my point is that as a player, when the GM's prompting you for what are you guys doing next, and you're saying where you want to go or what you want to do, don't focus on the name details. Focus on the what it is that you want to accomplish when you're going there. Like, we want to go and, like, if say you're doing sort of like a Grand Theft Auto-y type game, and you're a bunch of crooks in a major city. You don't have to say, you say, we want to go to sort of a somewhat disreputable neighborhood so that we can knock heads with actually, this is more Saints Row-y, really. So that we can knock heads with the local gangs, take them to sort of, break up their hold in the place so that we can move in and take over.
Yeah.
You don't have to specify what part of town or what sort of gang it is, but just those statements will, give the GM something to work with, so that he can work up a gang for that and work up the part of town and that sort of thing. Even if he hasn't planned that out ahead of time, plan out every part of town ahead of time, which is something I would not recommend a game master do. Is don't try to work up everything. Work up the areas the players are going to be involved with in early, and as they expand where they're going, then you start adding in those pieces. And it won't be as it basically allow the game to grow organically, but it might not feel as it could. The one problem with that is it could end up feeling a little bit less
coherent,
yeah, or grounded in
or unified.
Yeah. Like the city or the planet or what have you, whatever scale you're at, might end up feeling a little bit disjointed, and that's a price I think you kind of have to pay.
Yeah.
To save your sanity. So that you actually have the ability to actually do run the campaign without like losing your brain or burning out.
Yeah, it'll probably the one problem with the sandbox game is when you look at it as a whole, it's going to feel pretty patchwork.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's cool. That's especially not that big a deal when you're talking about like space, for example.
Right.
Because it's space.
Space is big.
Yeah.
You might think it's a long way down to the chemists, but that's peanuts compared to space. Thank you, Douglas Adams. So, yeah.
Then you have the cricket robots.
Yeah, honestly, if you take a look at like the way a lot of sci-fi series, like especially like series like The Hitchhiker's Guide, which kept it kept changing as it went along, and there are a lot of weird, diverse elements that don't, on the surface, make a ton of sense. Yeah, somehow
look at original series Star Trek. Very much the same thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, why the fuck is there this planet where they worship the friggin' United States Constitution when they don't have any space flight the first time anyone's been there?
Because
why is there a gangster planet?
Why is there a Nazi planet? Why is there any of these things? Because it made for a good story and it was a lot of fun. And honestly, in a sandbox-style campaign, that's what you're looking for, in my personal opinion. It's the campaign as a whole. The campaign as a whole is probably going to feeling, as I said, feeling somewhat disjointed. That said,
It could be a lot of fun.
oh, it will be a lot of fun, and
Yeah.
if everybody's invested in it, everyone's having fun, it'll be disjointed, but who cares? If the stories that you're telling in it are fun, the players are having fun, everyone's playing their characters and interacting with the game world, and it just everything's sort of you're doing all that. That's fine. That's great. That's what you want.
Holy shit! I just thought of the best friggin' thing to do in this Black Crusade game.
Okay.
So remember what I said about the friggin' like Inquisitional alternate team for the Chaos Boys?
Absolutely.
They are both picked up by a super powerful energy being, and they have to fight it out, friggin' Kirkengorn style, on a planet because the super energy being wants to figure out which is better.
So we're talking so Arena. Okay.
Yes, we're totally doing friggin' like old school Star Trek. Prove your worth to my crazy, gaseous, bad special effect from the 60s.
So it's Satan.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Use the fucking trickster.
I immediately went, wait, I actually know what this is in 40K. Somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know how I know that, but I do.
Yeah, use the fucking trickster. It's like exactly the kind of shit he loves pulling on people.
By the way, Eric, you do know that episode of Star Trek is based on a short story, right? An actual.
I did not know that actually.
God, I have a friend who wrote it. It was a sci-fi short story written, I think, the 40s or 50s, where it was basically a human and an alien, and they were dropped on a planet basically naked.
Right.
And there was a force field between the two of them that conscious living matter could not pass through. It seemed impervious at first, but eventually both of them figured out,
that they can throw rocks at each
like,
other.
that inanimate objects could pass through it, and the alien started hucking rocks at the human. And eventually, the human discovered by accident that an unconscious living being could go through it too. And that's how he eventually got through to get up close to the alien, which was much less dangerous in hand-to-hand combat than he was, and he killed it. Of course, the stakes in the short story were a little bit higher than they were in Star Trek,
Right.
because the loser of the contest, the super powerful
The god
ancient
for all intents and purposes.
the omnipotent energy being basically decided that these two races, humanity and this race being at war, was going to basically wipe both races out. So he figured, okay, so I want to save one of you two. So here's what's going to happen. You two fight. The loser, I wipe out your species.
Why would you do that?
Well, because the two are going to wipe each other out otherwise.
You know what? That's fucking Mass Effect 3 Godchild logic. Fuck that logic.
I agree, but it was a good short story. I mean, and again...
Okay, fair enough.
And, of course, humanity wins, and humanity's not wiped out.
Right.
And I understand why they changed it in Star Trek.
Yes.
Because it makes no fucking sense in Star Trek to do it that way. And it made for a good episode. Even
Organics and synthetics cannot get along, so we'll destroy all of both and take them into ourselves to preserve them for all eternity. Fuck you, Godchild. I've got Geth and what are they called? Quarians fighting side by side against your friggin' giant squid ships. Fuck you, or refute your basic thesis for existence. With evidence out the window.
Oh, but that won't last forever. They'll turn on each other eventually, again.
Oh, man, I so wish that was an option.
I know. I would agree. And honestly, the correct response to there's a response to the statement that well, they'll turn on each other eventually. They're only fighting alongside each other because there'd be a bigger threat to threaten them both.
Congratulations! That's how you solve it.
So,
Be
okay.
that bigger threat.
So when it happens again in the future, show up again to force them to cooperate again. Every now and then. That's fine. Just stop killing all of us right now. We're getting along now.
Yeah.
Also, this particular plot, this particular storyline makes no fucking sense with any of the other information you've dropped in the first 2 fucking games.
Yeah. No, seriously, like, I liked it a lot better when the Reapers are just this enigmatic, uncaring thing that was going to destroy everything because, well, we're just not cool enough to know why.
Well, they actually, I remember, there are hints they dropped through at least Mass Effect 1 that the Reaper, that there are different, the reasons for what the Reapers are doing is very different than what they were indicating from what I've heard about the ending of 3. I forget what they are now though, because I haven't played Mass Effect in a while. I remember having a discussion with my my
there
friends.
There was the implication that the in 2 that it's actually how the Reapers reproduce.
Okay, sure.
Like they go and they destroy everything. They collect it all, and from the gestalt of biomass, they create a new Reaper.
Interesting. So yeah, I mean, yeah. I have not yet played Mass Effect 3 or 2 even. I'm going to at some point.
2 is very good. It's also much smaller than the other 2.
That's fine.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
I
will play it when I will.
3 was great. It was big and epic with great gameplay and story elements and character stuff up until the last fucking 15 minutes.
I know. And I actually have since my brother gave me a PS3 for Christmas, an old used PS3, his used PS3, since he got a PS4. He also gave me his copy of the Mass Effect trilogy.
Nice.
So I actually own 3 now, so
nice.
I'll probably play it on console at some point. I own Mass Effect 1 and 2 for the PC, but if I've got all 3 on console, I should probably play through it all on console.
Yeah.
So that I can continue my save file all the way through. That's my theory, at least. But so yeah, I mean, the other big question you have to have with a sandbox game, though, back to the sandbox game stuff, because that's sort of what we're talking about today, in theory.
I just realized how off topic we went again.
It happens. But I do think that I'm trying to think whether you can do sort of an ongoing sort of arcing plot or not. And I think you can.
Oh, you certainly can. You just need to tuck it in there somehow. I'm not sure how to go about doing it, but I am confident that it can be done.
Basically, you'd have to, like always, when I suggest this sort of stuff, is that you come up with a basic sort of an arc for the story. And as my general rule of thumb for that is that you plan out, my suggestion for it is if you want to do that, you want to have an overarching story going on in the background that the players can interact with when they see fit. First off, the overarching story has to some way impact what the players want. So you have to find out what that is. Like their long-term, if the players find out what the players' long-term goals are, or even their short-term goals, and you have to have it so the overarching plot intersects with them in some way, shape, or form at various times, and so that the players are motivated to want to do something about that, are motivated to interact with the plot. Be it and it doesn't have to be that it's antagonistic to them. It could entirely be that the players decide that yes, we're in favor of this. And that's fine. But the big thing is that you have to have a timeline in sort of in the background for when things are going to happen. So events happen here and there, and you'll have to adjust when those happen in reaction to what the players decide to do, so that it doesn't just zoom on ahead of them and they never see any of it. So you have to slow things down sometimes or speed things up sometimes. But you should therefore have an idea so that you can drop hints about what's going on in the background. And if the players choose to follow up on that, they can. And if they choose not to, well, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a big, crazy, overarching plot happening in the background that the players choose to ignore or not. Could cause them, if they choose to ignore it, could cause them problems down the road.
Right, exactly. And then they'll have to deal with it then. Or not, again. And again, they could decide to sign up with the ongoing plot, and that's fine.
I will totally choose the side of the horrible planet-devouring abomination that has nothing to do with what my goals are, because, you know what? Why not? I will join the flying papier-mâché metal tail with a doomsday laser on it. Again, referencing original series Star Trek.
The Planet Killer. Well, again, the Planet Killer itself wouldn't be an arc. That'd just be an effect. That'd be a symptom of the arc, really.
Yeah.
Because that's just a thing that's going around doing stuff. That's a plot device, not a plot. The Planet Killer itself. You'd be siding with whoever's behind the Planet Killer, assuming that there is somebody. If there's not, and it's just some wandering thing that's blowing stuff up, that's fine. It's a good. The Planet Killer episode of Star Trek is a great adventure.
Yes.
But unless there's something behind that, it doesn't really it won't tie into any sort of ongoing plot. It's just if there's not something behind why the Planet Killer has shown up all of a sudden and is blowing stuff up. I mean, the players could decide at that point, okay, this Planet Killer showed up, we stopped it. Where did it come from? Who made it? We should find this out so that more of them don't show up to blow up more stuff we care about. And there you go. You have an arc there.
Yeah.
And yeah, you might have to throw out the arc you're planning to go with that. But you know what? That's cool. The other big piece of advice I just thought of, that it's a piece of advice I give to any game master, but it's crucial in a sandbox game, is the players who decide to go somewhere you are not prepped for in the middle of a session. You must not be at all afraid to say, okay, guys, I was not planning for this. I didn't anticipate that. Would you guys be all right to give me 20 minutes to try to figure out where you're going? So I can so I can adjust things so you can go there and do the thing. If it's early, and that's if it's early in the session or sort of around the middle of the session. If it's towards the end of your given sort of meeting session, wrap up a little bit early and say, okay, guys, you guys are going somewhere I wasn't planning on. I need to take time to prep for it for next week. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because most players understand that from time to time they will do things that the game master is not anticipating. And that occasionally the game master will sit there going, okay. And some game masters can wing it from there and improv their way through it and do things okay there. I'm pretty good at doing that. No false modesty there. It's one of my strengths as a game master. I'm good at adapting to players doing stuff I wasn't anticipating on the fly. I think that's mostly due to the fact I've been doing this for a very long time. And also I read a lot and I've watched a lot of movies and watched a lot of TV and all that sort of stuff. So I've got a lot of sort of plot threads floating in the back of my head that I can draw on if I need to. So I don't have to do that as often as I might need to otherwise, I think is the way to put it. Because I will say this flat out, the number of times that any group Eric's been involved in that I've game mastered has done something I was not planning for is surprisingly high. And I usually do one of three things. Either I will pull the great sort of, plot swap. Oh, you're going to have to do that. Okay, well, okay, right. So I will take the place where I was planning you going and change the themes and such for it to where you're talking about going. So it's the exact same thing. I've got all the mechanics of it planned out. I just have to change the names to protect the guilty, i.e. me and the players. So that's the big one. As I said, that's my favorite trick in game mastering. I do that, or I'll just improv it and I'll just make shit up as I go. I do that a fair bit.
Yeah.
There are a number of sessions I've run of virtually every campaign I've done on stream. Actually, no, not virtually. Every campaign I've done on stream. And every game I've run with you guys on Monday/Tuesday, where I've had to make shit up for most of the session.
That happens. Mm-hmm. You're usually pretty good at that.
Yeah, as I said, no false modesty. It's one of my skills as a game master.
Yeah.
I'm good at bullshitting my way through that shit.
I have not mastered that.
As I said, I've been doing this a long time. It's good for something, at least. But yeah, I mean, like... let me think. I'm trying to think of an example of that. Okay, Eric, I've actually got a question. So before we go any further, are there any sessions you can think of that you thought I was doing that?
Oh, nothing immediately springs to mind, but I have noticed when you've done it before. But I'm a nice enough guy to just let you do your thing.
Well,
I know you've done it more often than I've noticed. I'm going to say that. Probably by a significant amount.
I mean, I admit, like, this past week's D&D game I ran on Saturday, about half of that was improv.
That doesn't surprise me.
But that's because I was running basically a murder mystery, and if you're doing that in an RPG, you're going to have to make shit up as you go.
Yes.
Because, I mean, you can plan out, if you, like, that's the problem with murder mysteries. This is off topic a bit. We're running up towards the end of the show, and we've covered most of what I want to talk about in sandboxing anyways.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But the problem with running murder mysteries mysteries in general, is you can plan out the actual sort of the mystery like you would in a book or in a TV show or in a movie. The problem is the players will always do something you weren't anticipating. Be it go somewhere you weren't expecting, form conclusions that you had not planned for, and so on. They might decide that someone is guilty, despite the fact that you didn't think of that, but the chain of logic they put together in their heads is at least makes some resemblance of sense. So you're not going to be able to talk them off of it. You're not going to be able to throw clues at them to get them off of it, because they'll think those are red herrings. And in that case, you have to basically improv things, and you might be able to wind them back to what your original plan for the guilty party was. And that can take time and some effort. And if you're good at if you run a lot of mysteries or watch a lot of mysteries TV shows or movies or what have you, you'll have lots of resources of types of things you can do the types of clues you can throw out to convince the players where they're going, that the path they're on is not the right one.
Yes, certainly.
One of my personal favorite tricks, I didn't do it this time, is going into it not knowing who did it. Basically, throwing out a whole bunch of various clues and let the players form their own conclusions. Come up with a list of suspects. Let the players sort of decide who the likely guilty party is by the various bits of information you throw out there. Where you're like, I haven't fully decided who actually is guilty. You've got you want potential motivations for each of the possible suspects, but let the players figure out what they're doing. And eventually, if the players come up with a good, rational, logical explanation for why someone is guilty, go with it. And adapt the rest of the stuff to the adventure you planned to that being the guilty party. This is obviously akin to the swap the dungeon for the area that the players are actually going to trick.
Yes. Yeah, I was wondering whether or not you actually figured there was a cult involved, because I immediately latched onto a cult.
I had what I had decided. I'll tell you what I had decided that a follower of Lady Discord was behind the killing. Was the one who was doing the killings.
Okay.
That's basically as far as I got. Whether it's actually a cult or not, I haven't decided that yet.
Oh, okay. I've decided it's a cult.
It might be. So yeah, I'd say one of the biggest. Oh, going back to our original topic, one of the biggest dues is for especially for the game master, but this is for the players too, is to be flexible.
Yes. Everyone's got to be flexible in one of these.
Oh God, yeah, you have to be able to adapt things. Don't get too focused on your pet plot or your pet agenda or what have you. Be willing to adapt, because if you don't, the campaign's going to grind to a halt. I mean, you'll want to stick with certain things, but you have to be willing to adapt in at least some ways. And it's generally true for most games, I think. You have to be willing to basically, You can't. My gut feeling is, and my experience in this also is that sticking to one sort of not being willing to change things on the fly, either as a player or as a game master, especially if they're like not major things, is just a recipe for disaster in role playing games in my experience.
Yeah, no, Yeah, I really have to agree. Like, flexibility is key in all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Must be fluid like water.
Thank you, Bruce.
Well, it's amazing how well that applies to a lot of things.
Yeah. Oh God. So yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else that we might have forgotten on the do's and don'ts. I'm sort of blanking on anything.
I'm not sure. I think we covered most of this shit.
I mean, is there anything else as a player you can think of for sandbox campaigns or advice for that?
Anything else? Not off the top of my head. Like I said, you've got to keep flexible and chip in for the game master whenever possible.
Yeah, that's something I would definitely say. I think it's a big help if the players do help in world building somewhat. And as a game master, if the players come up with a good idea for an NPC, run with it. But as a player, you have to remember that if you do come up with an NPC and the game master decides to use it, once it's in the GM's hands, you're not going to fiddle with it much more after that. It's the game master is going to have to be able to use it the way they see fit at that point.
Yeah, certainly.
But don't hesitate to come up with ideas for NPCs. Not just NPCs, but even parts of town or planet ideas if it's in a sci-fi game, or God help me, alien races that you want to throw into the game.
Yeah, or even like whole fucking nations.
Right, absolutely. Don't hesitate to basically if the game master is running a game like this, and he's open, and they are open to not just he, I mean they are open to being flexible on this sort of thing. I mean, I know for a fact that I love it when my players do that. I adore it. God, it makes my life easier. It's one of the reasons I love running sci-fi games when Chris is a player in my games, because our friend Chris just comes up with stuff all the time because he likes game master, he loves world building, and he throws stuff, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll incorporate that. It doesn't. It fits in with my view for the universe overall, and I don't have to think of that anymore. I don't have to. Cool, I'll plug that in somewhere. Whee! I love doing that. Part of that is because I think I'm better at doing collaborative stuff than Eric is as a game master. We talked about this a while back.
I'm not good at collaborative stuff in general.
Right. I'm pretty good at it. For the most part. I like creating things with other people. Honestly, what it boils down to. I mean, there are times when I will want to stick to my guns on something, and there are things that I prefer doing on my own. But if I'm going into it expecting to be collaborating, I'm actually quite happy to do so, and I enjoy it. My experience has been that I've enjoyed it. I
don't have ego about a lot of shit, but it does get in the way of collaboration.
And that's fine. Not everybody is good at that sort of thing. Everybody has different strengths and weaknesses as a game master. I mean, to begin with. As I said, I'm really good at improvisation and adapting players' ideas into my games. I'm bad at playing particularly nasty evil villains. I just don't do them well. I don't make them particularly convincing.
Yeah, I tend to be better at that than you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm very good at certain types of villains.
Yeah, you're very good at the hero gone awry kind of deal.
Oh god, that and the villain, the sort of the more noble villains, the villains who honestly think they're doing the right thing. I'm really good at that. I like to think.
I do tend to be better at the more depraved things.
Yeah, I'm really bad at that. Don't know why.
Do you like to hang out with my infernalist friend? Will then murder his friend to summon a monster because, well, you annoyed him?
I mean, I use villains like that all the time.
Right.
but they're not the more interesting ones. They did end up being the ones that I guess, are less memorable, I think.
I guess so, yeah.
I mean, I've used some particularly, like, really nasty, evil people that have been memorable because they at least have a veneer of being, I guess, civilized. I don't know. Like some of the villains, like back from the Star City game. Like, I had some pretty dark, nasty bad guys in there.
Azazel comes to mind.
He was memorable.
Yeah.
And he's one of the nastier ones I've thrown at you guys.
Yes. No, he was a bad man. I was very glad that we got to beat him up.
I was very fond of him, and he will never ever show up again.
No, never again.
Well, if and when we ever do Star City again, he will show up again at some point, probably. Though
sure.
you guys do have him banished for a while, so.
Yeah, that was also the closest Dr. Arcane ever went to going dark side.
Yes.
Like, he was really upset with that.
Well, I was pushing your buttons, Eric.
Yeah, you were definitely pushing buttons.
Yeah, well, Dr. Arcane's buttons specifically.
Dr. Arcane's buttons.
So yeah, I think that's going to do it for this week, though. We didn't get any viewer questions, so
cool.
I think that's going to be it. So, but speaking of viewer questions, we love getting them. And we try to save time at the end of each show for them if we get them. So, if you have questions you'd like answered on the show, email them to us. Our email address is surlygrognards@yahoo.com, surlygrognards@yahoo.com. Or you can post them on our forums, which you can find at mechagm.forumer.com. We also, if you've got feedback for us, how we can make the show better, constructive criticism, all that stuff. We love that stuff because we want to make the show better. We like improving things.
We absolutely do.
So send them to either of those two places, or if you have show topic suggestions, like this week's or what have you, if you got something you want us to talk about for a show, let us know, and we'll if we think we can do a good angle on it for a show, we'll do it. And we love getting them because it means we don't have to come up with a topic off the top of our heads ourselves. So
yes, which really makes us happy. Yeah.
Well, honestly, it's not just that. It's not just laziness. I mean, it's also that
we like to know what people need to know and would like to hear about. So
right, exactly. So, and sometimes we won't be able to do it immediately. Like, we've gotten a few topic suggestions that we haven't done yet because we need to do research on them.
And that is the fault of laziness.
Yes! But most of those we're going to get to eventually.
Yes.
So if you've got something that might require research, that's fine. Send it to us. We'll definitely, if it's something that we're both interested in talking about, and we'll take time to put the research in and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hit us up at our email address or on the forums again, and we'll try to get to it at some point. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, do feel free to hit like and subscribe, or you can ask us questions in the comment section on YouTube, and we'll try to answer. I keep an eye on those, so I'll either answer you there or answer you on the show.
I keep on forgetting we're on YouTube now.
Isn't it astonishing?
I feel... Eat your caribou eyes, spider.
We record the show live every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern here on twitch.tv/mechagm. I post when the show's going live on my Twitter, which you can find at mechagm. That's the handle, at mechagm. And so if we're going to be when we're going live, or if we have to postpone for a week, or if we're just going to do it later in the day, a little bit later in the day, or another day of the week, I'll post that there. Or if we're changing when what day of the week we're recording on for a significant period of time, I'll also let you know there also, because that will never happen again. It's going to happen again at some point. Anywho, that's that, I think.
Yes.
I've hit all the post-show
I think you hit it all.
Good.
If you miss something, I'll let you know later on, and then we'll both forget.
After I'm done recording, and yeah.
Yeah. That's usually how these things work.
Yeah, and I'll be too lazy to edit the recording for YouTube, because, I'm bad at that. Anywho, guys, thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week with something.
We'll figure something out.
We
Probably 10 minutes before we actually
We do have a topic that was suggested, but it's one of the ones that's going to require some research.
Yeah.
So we might not get to that next week. It depends on how much, whether Eric and I get to doing research during the week or not.
Yeah.
Anywho, guys, thanks for watching. Till we see you guys next. Be happy, be safe, keep on gaming, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care, and have a good time. Or a good day.
Bye, humans.
Bye.